In 2022, my life was, to put it simply, awesome. I was only a few months away from getting married to my wife, Abby. I was surrounded by all my closest friends and got to work alongside many of them. And speaking of my job, I had been working here at PCC for 3 years, and it was and still is the best. So the realization that something was wrong really snuck up on me. It was one of those things that felt like it came out of nowhere, but looking back, it had been building up for a while before it became obvious. The problem was that I was exhausted and I didn't know how to take a break. Looking back now, I can be honest in telling you that part of the problem was I really didn't want to take a break. I was so in love with my job and the people I got to do it with that I didn't want to miss it. I literally couldn't get past what would be happening without me or how it would happen without me there. Now, the truth is that all of that stuff, all that explanation was just excuses. And I used all those excuses to ignore the problem. I was exhausted, and it was starting to affect every area of my life. My work got done late, and when I did turn it in, it wasn't my best. I was constantly late to everything. And worst of all, I had zero patience. The slightest inconvenience would set me off or make me lash out. I wasn't in a good place, and people were starting to notice. Fortunately, one of those people was Elijah Shirelli. If you were at Rise last week, you heard about how he's one of my closest friends. Well, he knew me well enough that he could tell something was wrong. And he did a really hard thing. He told me that something seemed off with me and that I needed a break. And he really didn't give me a choice. He essentially forced me to take a week off. Elijah helped me see something difficult about myself that I couldn't see. And there are times in our lives when all of us need friends like that. When we need people to help us get back on course and grow to be better than we are today, well, that's when we need Lifelines. You don't have to be in a place like I was to need friends who will help you when you're in trouble and help make you better. In fact, there are so many reasons why we need friends like that. We might be slowly drifting away one step at a time from who we want to be. We might be distracted by little things and lose sight of the things that matter most. Or we might be drowning in our own lives when things get overwhelming. When we're going through times like that, we're often the last ones to notice, which is exactly why we all need friends who will be there to help, support, or challenge us when those times come. Now, during this series, we're learning how to have and how to be those kind of friends from the ultimate example, Jesus Christ. We're exploring 4 times Jesus was a friend to someone who needed him and what we can learn from his example. Now, last week at Rise, we read an interaction that Jesus had with a total stranger. But today, the example we're going to explore is with some of the people who were closest to Jesus. Let's check it out. As Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into their home. Her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he taught. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. So this interaction that Jesus has is with Mary and Martha, who were 2 of Jesus' disciples or most devoted followers. Now, if you've been around PCC students, then you know that we use the word disciple a lot when we talk about Jesus. But it's important to know that this term didn't begin with Jesus. A disciple was a student of a rabbi or a Jewish teacher. But being a disciple wasn't just about learning. It was also about imitating the lessons and the life of their teacher. Now, Mary and Martha knew that Jesus was an important teacher, the most important teacher ever, actually. The pressure of having Jesus in their home must have gotten to Martha's head, because when Jesus entered the house, she got distracted. Martha was so busy trying to make everything perfect for Jesus' visit that she felt like she couldn't even sit down and listen to him teach. She went on a house cleaning and food preparing spree instead. Now, I have a couple people in my life who would probably understand how Martha felt. One of my wife Abby's many amazing qualities is that she loves to host people. It's really important to her for people to feel welcome and comfortable in our home. Somehow, though, that ends up meaning that our house has to look like construction just wrapped up yesterday before anyone steps foot inside. I've made the point that it's totally fine for our house to look like we actually live in it, but Abby prefers that it looks like a museum instead. I don't get it. But honestly, nobody does this quite like my mom. Anytime we had people over when I was growing up, it was an entire production that started days in advance. Several hours of cutting grass and yard work, vacuuming, dusting, the whole deal. My brother and I even had to have our beds made. And yes, we did ask, why do our beds have to be made? Are we hosting guests in our bedrooms? That didn't end well for us. Martha wasn't just anxious about having a guest over or distracted. She was frustrated too, and she let Jesus know how she was feeling. She, Martha, came to Jesus and said, "Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do all the work? Tell her to come and help me." Maybe Martha really was frustrated with her sister for not helping, or maybe she was just upset that she wasn't able to get everything done before Jesus arrived and was beating herself up for it. Either way, she took out her frustration on her sister. And here's how Jesus responded. But the Lord said to her, "My dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her." Now, in case it's unclear, the one thing Jesus was talking about was what he came to teach them. That was the only thing worth being worried about. Now, a conversation like this one is never easy. We can imagine that it must have felt a little embarrassing, both for Martha and for anyone within earshot. But Jesus wasn't harsh or impatient or rude. He simply helped Martha to see something she couldn't see before. And he gave her a chance to choose a different way. Maybe Martha didn't realize that simply sitting with Jesus was even an option for her. Maybe she thought it was her job to take care of everyone and that she would have been a failure if she hadn't done that. Maybe she was so in the habit of helping others that she had forgotten how to take care of herself. So Jesus tells her exactly what she needs to hear. Not what she wants to hear, not what's comfortable, but what she needs. He gently says, "It's okay. Sit with us for a while. Let's talk." When Martha was drifting, distracted, and drowning in her self-imposed responsibilities, Jesus threw her a lifeline. He helped her to see something about herself, then gave her the chance to make a different choice and to grow in the process. This was a vulnerable moment. Jesus didn't condemn or shame Martha, but he didn't ignore the moment either. He saw the thing that Martha couldn't see in herself and then invited her to make a change. But that's not just true for Martha. Jesus does the same thing for us and invites us to do it for each other. Now, last week we read a piece of scripture that's so important to what we're talking about in this series that I want to read it again. Let's check it out. "Imitate God, therefore, in everything you do, because you are his dear children. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ." We're supposed to imitate God. Remember that? To look at his example and see how we can become more like him, including in our friendships. Just like Jesus gave Martha a chance to change and grow, we can imitate God in our friendships when we build friendships that help us grow. The kind of friendships that help you to see the things you can't see in yourself and then challenge you to grow from them. That's exactly what Elijah did for me. He saw something in me that I didn't see about myself, a stubbornness about rest. He called it out and gave me an opportunity to grow from it. So for the first time in 3 years on staff here, I took some time off, and it was exactly what I needed. I came back refreshed, re-energized, and in a much better headspace. And while I still don't do it perfectly, I've come a long way when it comes to knowing when I need a break. And that wouldn't have been possible if Elijah wasn't willing to be a lifeline friend. So what about you? Where do you need to grow? Is there an area of your life where you're drifting, distracted, or drowning? Maybe you have some bad habits you're trying to get rid of and some good habits you wish you could develop. Maybe a friendship or a relationship has gotten complicated and you could really use another perspective to help you figure out what to do next. Maybe you've been working toward a personal goal for a long time now, but you feel stuck and could use a push. In friendships that help you grow, your friends should help push you to achieve those kind of things. And you should do the same for your friends. Martha needed Jesus to throw her a lifeline so she could see what she was missing. And when we care for each other the way Jesus cares for us, we'll learn to throw each other the same lifelines when we need them. Lifeline friendships help us grow. So let's decide that we're going to grow and help each other to do the same.